Intelligent monsters attempt to infiltrate a secure farmhouse after a teen makes a mistake. In a post-apocalyptic future Earth, Paul and his two sons, Thomas and Joseph, live in a constant state of fear, enduring peaceful days but facing relentless attacks from a mysterious evil every night. When Thomas doesn't return home before sundown one day, Paul is compelled to leave the safety of their fortified farm to find him. This decision leads the family into a nightmarish battle, forcing them to devise a desperate plan to survive. Strap in, movie enthusiasts, it's recap time. Today we will be recapping an action horror film named Arcadian from the year 2024. So let's start. The movie begins in a world devastated by an apocalypse. Paul searches a ruined town for supplies when sirens blare, signaling danger. He quickly navigates the streets, avoiding screams and bombs, until he finds refuge in an abandoned house on the outskirts. Here, he reunites with his sons, whom he's been caring for alone. 15 years pass, and Paul's sons, now teenagers, live with him in the same house. They venture out during the day to scavenge for supplies, always staying hidden at night. One evening as the sun sets, his son, Joseph, covers the windows while their dog, Rocco, is brought inside. Meanwhile, Paul waits outside until Thomas, his other son, returns. He scolds Thomas for being late, but Thomas explains that he was helping neighbors at the neighborhood Rose Farm. After locking every door and window, they sit down for dinner. Paul warns Thomas that if he's late again, he won't be allowed to leave the boundaries. Joseph teases his brother, sparking an argument that escalates into a physical fight. Paul intervenes, reminding them they're men, not animals. After dinner, Paul watches his sons play chess until Rocco starts scratching and growling at the floor. Taking it as a warning, Paul and Thomas investigate. They're startled by banging on the door, seemingly from scary creatures trying to force their way in. They hold the door against the creatures' attempts to break in, and eventually, the creatures give up and leave. Thomas criticizes Joseph for not helping, but Joseph explains he was listening to learn more. The creatures made 3 attempts. The first lasted 10 seconds, the second 20, and the last just 1. Joseph interprets this as a test, an actual attempt, and a frustrated hit. The next day, they inspect the door and find claw marks on the wood. The weakened door prompts Paul and his boys to search for wood to reinforce it. They gather their findings and return home. While Thomas chops wood, Paul checks on Joseph in the barn, where Joseph has been working on something. During their conversation, Paul reads a page suggesting that pollution caused the arrival of the mysterious creatures to rid the world of evil humans. Paul, however, believes in the resilience of mankind and the possibility of heroes emerging to save everyone one day. Encouraged by Paul, Joseph confesses he's been attempting to build a vehicle. Though unsuccessful, Paul examines it and successfully gets it running by swapping relays. Paul then takes the teens for a ride to teach them how to drive. Returning home after an hour, Paul reminds them that the windows still need reinforcement and sends them to the river to salvage materials. Thomas is upset because he was promised a trip to the Rose Farm. However, Paul insists he can go the next day. As they leave in the car, Thomas blames Joseph, accusing Paul of sending him along just to protect his brother. Joseph, confident he doesn't need protection, continues driving while Thomas gets out near the Rose Farm, asking to be picked up later. Back at the house, Paul finishes reinforcing the door and takes a solitary break by the waterfall, smoking. While alone, Paul notices a creepy black hole in the rocks. Meanwhile, Joseph ties himself to the car and explores an old abandoned ship at the river for supplies. He's startled when bugs swarm out of a trash pile, forcing him to quickly leave. At the Rose Farm, Thomas helps with chores, but it's clear he's there to see Charlotte, the owner's daughter. They bond over their shared crush for one another and a game of theories about the apocalypse. As the sun sets, Charlotte gives Thomas a tight hug before he rushes home. On the other hand, Joseph, after facing some car trouble, eventually heads home, while Paul grows worried when neither son returns. Meanwhile, Thomas rushes back, but slips and falls into a deep trench. When Joseph arrives to pick up his brother, he doesn't find him and continues home. He informs Paul, who orders Joseph to lock up while he and Rocco search for Thomas. Meanwhile, Thomas wakes up in the trench. Using a lighter, he spots a creature reaching through a hole in the wall. It screeches, heard by Paul and Rocco. Thomas stabs the creature's hand with a pocket knife, causing it to retreat. Soon, another creature grabs Thomas's face, but Paul arrives and kills it. They decide to spend the night in the trench, covering the entrance with a rock. Later, they hear the creatures approaching through the hole. Paul peeks out with a flare and sees them. The ground shakes as the monsters move underground, trapping them. Paul puts the flare inside an underground opening and hits a buried bomb, causing an explosion that injures him too. Meanwhile, Joseph hears creaking outside the house but assumes it's secure and seemingly falls asleep on a sofa. A creature moves the wood covering a hole in the door and reaches inside, testing if Joseph is asleep by extending its nail. When Joseph doesn't react, the creature enters. only for Joseph to reveal he was pretending and trap it in a cage that falls from the ceiling. The next morning, Joseph is worried about the others and goes out in the car to search. Meanwhile, Thomas digs out of the trench entrance and pulls his heavily wounded father out. Rocco follows the car's noise and guides Joseph back to his family. They work together to bring Paul back to the house and bandage his wounds. While discussing their next steps, Thomas notices the cage and realizes the creature is inside. Joseph explains that light hurts the monsters. Next, they bandage Paul's wounds, and Joseph mentions the creature took 8 seconds to enter, the shortest time yet. He believes there was a second creature that left. Thomas suggests the creatures came for revenge because they killed some in the trench since those beasts rarely visit the Rose Farm. Joseph insists that only Paul killed the creatures, not Thomas. To prove his point, Thomas tries to kill the monster in the cage. Joseph wants to study it, but in the struggle the monster escapes and hides under the bed. When it reappears, Rocco barks, prompting the creature to attack. Joseph holds it down while Thomas cuts its head off with an axe. Joseph then takes the body to the barn to examine it, but gains no further understanding. Meanwhile, Thomas suggests taking Paul to Charlotte's farm for better care and medicine. Joseph doubts the roses will help, but is forced to go along. At the farm, Charlotte's parents refuse to take in Paul due to limited medicine, but they agree to let Thomas stay, leaving Paul and Joseph with more resources at home. This makes Joseph angry, and he blames Thomas for their father's impending death. Furious, Thomas pushes Joseph to the ground and starts choking him before stopping himself a few moments later. After this, Joseph drives away with his unconscious father, while Thomas stays with the family at the farm. Later on, Charlotte shares food and her belongings with Thomas, and they share a sweet moment, kissing before being interrupted by her father. Meanwhile, Joseph notices signs of the creature's movement underground on his way back home. He finds the sheep running in fear and mounds of dirt, indicating their presence. At home, he discovers a dirt path near the wall, fearing the monsters may be underneath. After caring for his father, Joseph searches the barn for any underground openings and begins blocking the windows. While moving around the house, he finds a hole under the carpet, realizing the monsters are already inside. At the farm, Charlotte finds Thomas in the kitchen. He's still worried about his father and wants to find medicine. Charlotte gives him some, and he promises to return, unaware that someone is listening in on their conversation. As Thomas tries to leave, a farm employee accuses him of stealing and points a gun at him. Thomas then insists Charlotte gave him the medicine, but the man doesn't believe him. They tie Thomas up in the barn and play music to cover their actions. As they prepare to punish Thomas by shooting his leg, a hole opens beneath one of the men, causing him to fall and miss his shot. When the others rush to help, a creature emerges from the hole and attacks. Meanwhile, in the main house, Charlotte's parents wake up to investigate a noise. A creature enters their room and attacks the father, causing a fire when his candle falls. The monster then attacks Charlotte's mother, while her father tries to intervene. The mother tries to escape, but is attacked again by the creature. In her bedroom, Charlotte hears the chaos and comes outside after some moments, only to discover a trail of blood. She finds the creature with her mother's body in the bathroom. Back at the barn, the men struggle to fight off the creatures. As the creatures attack, the farm employees are killed one by one, and those who manage to escape are chased down. The barn soon catches fire, and Thomas breaks free from the furniture he's tied to, just as a creature approaches. Before it can attack, Charlotte shoots it down. As they run out, Thomas sees the house engulfed in flames. Charlotte reveals her parents are gone, so they decide to go to Thomas's place. Back at home, Joseph throws furniture into the underground hole in hopes of buying time. He checks on his unconscious father, kisses his forehead, and prepares to fight. Soon, the hole in the door opens, revealing Thomas and Charlotte. Joseph admits he needs Thomas's help with a plan, but their conversation is interrupted by Paul waking up. He quickly takes the medicine and tells his sons to keep fighting. Joseph then shares that he has a plan and asks for their help as they gather gas cans and move an old freezer into the house. Thomas and Charlotte then seal doors around the room with the hole, while Joseph creates a pile of furniture, adding explosive objects and a burning cigar. Meanwhile, as the pile covering the hole starts shaking, a creature descends the chimney in the room with Paul. Another one bursts from the hole, and Thomas attacks it from behind as it crosses a door. While Charlotte shoots down a third monster, soon they regroup with Joseph and move the freezer, but Paul, covered in blood from killing the chimney monster, joins them, taking Charlotte's gun and shooting at the creatures downstairs. A horde approaches, and Paul fights them off with the kids, impressed by the teens' teamwork. Paul then locks the door behind the teens to buy them time. Seeing that they have no way to save Paul, the teens hide inside the freezer, while Paul recalls comforting his babies many years ago. Soon, more creatures burst in, and Paul distracts them while the furniture pile explodes, engulfing the house in flames. The freezer rolls in flames for minutes until it stops. After this, the teens get out and search the debris for Paul, but a creature jumps out suddenly. The group then races away in the car, with the blazing monsters behind them. Charlotte's bullets seem useless, so she smashes them with her gun, causing them to scatter off. After driving for a few miles, they stop the car and gaze at the stars, a sight they've missed while always being inside at night. The next morning, they return to the ruined house. Joseph decides they shouldn't rebuild there. Gathering whatever supplies they can salvage, they bury their loved ones and bid their final farewells. With heavy hearts, the three teens and Rocco leave in the car, seeking refuge in the farms down the valley, hoping for a fresh start in a new home. I hope you enjoyed the recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.